Welcome. Welcome. I am Reverend Deborah Phillips, and I want to introduce Paul Sanchez. Paul is new to the platform with us. He is going to help me with announcements this morning, and then he's going to offer, I think this is the first time you've done meditation with us on a Sunday, isn't it? On a Sunday. On a Sunday. So welcome, Paul.
We greet you.
Just keep going. Just keep going.
We greet you in the name of all that is good, all that is sacred, and all that is holy, and in the warm and loving energy of our spiritual community. Spiritual Life Center honors all people worshiping in temples, mosques, churches, stone circles, and the beautiful temples of nature, because there is no space that God does not grace. If this is your first time joining us, we especially welcome you because we know that you are not here by accident. We are all here by
divine appointment.
And we're so glad you kept your appointment. So at this time, please silence your electronic devices.
And as we move into the service, we move into prayer to give thanks for the ability to be back together again, to be in community, to share our love and our spiritual awakening with each other, knowing that everything that happens today is for the highest good of SLC, the highest good of everyone who is here today, knowing that we are blessed and that we are loved, and that everything is in right order, and that we are definitely in the right place at the right time. And so it is. Spiritual Life Center has a mission, and we like to say our mission statement weekly to help us integrate it into our consciousness. And so let's say this together. We transform lives as we love, serve, and remember. And we carry out this mission through the unity principles that help us to, again, make it real in our hearts and in our minds. And also this gives us something to tell people when they want to know what we're doing over there. So let's say these together. God is absolute good and everywhere present. People are inherently good. Thoughts create our experiences. Prayer and meditation are how we connect with God, and we must take action.
At 1 p.m. today, the Evolutionary Council will host an exciting town hall. Town halls create space for you to discover what your inner voice is guiding you to do here at SLC. It is also the place where you can ask questions, share your ideas, and co-create with the greater community. We have a new class. Mindfulness meditation with Reverend James Trapp will begin Wednesday, August 11th, and runs for 3 weeks. Don't miss it. The class meets from 6:30 to 8. Reverend James has extensive experience in mindfulness meditation, which makes this a great opportunity to expand your own meditation practice. Please sign up online today.
And you realize, you've noticed that we are continuing to not have throwing paper at you. And so the way to find out everything that's going on is you go out into the courtyard, and there is a bulletin board on this wall, and you can find out all the happenings. And then when you want to sign up for something like James's class, you go over to the hub, and they will sign you up. Would the Board of Trustees and chaplains please stand? The Board of Trustees wear purple ribbons on their name badges, and they are here to guide, shape, and provide oversight for our community operations. And thank you for being here today. Prayer chaplains are here to hold us in confidential prayer during our human journey of times of challenge and times of joy. They wear the white stoles, and they will be in the courtyard to pray with you after service if you should desire.
We love to welcome our newcomers. So in a moment, we will ask those of you who are here with us to raise your hand. There are many ways to connect at SLC, and you can get more information about small groups, events, and classes by filling out the welcome card. You can find it online at slcworld.org/connect. For those of us in person today, you can fill out the card and take it to the welcome table in the courtyard, where there is a very warm welcome waiting for you and also a gift.
Now if you're here for the very first time, raise your hand. Are we all family? Oh, we have new people. Thank you. Keep your hand raised and they will bring you. So we are offering you a purple ribbon, and we ask that you wear this on the left side over your heart so that we can greet you and offer you a heartfelt welcome to SLC. Thank you for joining us today on your unique spiritual path. Let's all stand and welcome our newcomers and each other.
Get into our group song. Pour yourself in me, wonderful Spirit. Please join us in singing. Pour yourself in me. Pour yourself into my heart. Oh, wonderful Spirit. Pour yourself. Pour yourself in me. Pour yourself into my heart. Whoa, whoa, whoa. be seated.
You sound beautiful this morning. It's nice to see some new faces back. So let's take this opportunity to speak our vision statement together. Spiritual Life Center is a loving, vibrant family that welcomes home all people and accepts everyone, no exceptions. Weaving ancient spiritual traditions with emerging wisdom, we cultivate a spiritual deepening with the divine, each other, and our planet. And we're going to do that beautiful chant by Karen Drucker again. If you were here last week, we learned it last week. It's got lots of layers, so once you hear all the layers, just stick with the one that feels right to you.
And I invite you to take a nice deep breath. Just settle in your chair. This song is all about allowing and surrendering and releasing and receiving and letting go. So I invite you to do that. When you are moved to join us, please do.
I surrender. I surrender. I surrender.
I allow, I surrender, I receive. Allow yourself this time of meditation. I invite you to close your eyes. Begin by relaxing your body, loosening any tension in your muscles. Drop your shoulders and simply breathe. As you breathe, exhale love. If you are willing, place your hand on your heart and repeat these words. I see you. I hear you. I love you. Notice any feelings that come up. Allow them to help shift your attention to your heart. Sit with those feelings, knowing that you are in the comfort of the loving presence as your hand slowly drops. Consider the words, "Thy will be done on heaven as it is on earth." In Aramaic, they are translated, "Create in me a divine cooperation from many selves, one voice, one action." Surrender. Surrender the idea that your will is somehow separate from God's will. Let all wills move together in your vortex as stars and planets swirl through the sky. Now, if you will, visualize two candles flickering. See the white, yellow, and orange flames swirling as they dance on the tapers. One candle is your will, the other God's will. As they come into focus, they begin to move ever so close, closer and closer together, until finally they merge into a single candle. Sit with the image of the single candle, all wills moving together as one, a divine cooperation, one flame in the silence. Gently return your awareness to your surroundings and the present moment. With a breath, blow out the imaginary candle, knowing that the true light is within. When you are ready, open your eyes. During the day, hold in your awareness that you are living in divine cooperation. One voice, one action. Receive. Receive what is already within you, the ability to choose, to lead, and to decide. May it be so. Amen.
If it be your will that I speak no more, and my voice be still as it was before, I will speak no more. I shall abide until
almost forgot to come up here. Thank you so much. Paula, just keep picking my favorite songs every time I speak. I like that. Before I start, well, as I start, I guess, I want to make it clear that Paul and I did not talk to each other while he was creating his meditation and I was writing my talk. And at 9 o'clock when he started talking, I'm kind of used to this stuff, but my jaw fell open. So we operated in complete silos from each other. So just keep that in mind as we go through this. This is such a beautiful song of surrender. You know, though if you listen to the lyrics, it's pretty clear that Mr. Cohen was probably not in a very good place, and it took him a while to come to that moment of surrender. It didn't come easily. It didn't come quickly for him. He had to work through his personal will and come to a place where he could let go and allow divine energy to flow in and through his life. And what he gave us was this huge gift of a song. You know, but this is a challenge for most of us. You know, Mr. Cohen made a comment in an interview about will a few years ago, and he said this: "We sense that there is a will that is behind all things, and we're aware of our own will, and it's the distance between those two wills that creates the mystery that we call religion. It is the attempt to reconcile our will with another will that we can't quite put our finger on, but we feel is powerful and existent. It's the space between those two wills that creates our predicament." I love that word, predicament. It's not horrible and awful, it's a predicament. So let's talk about these two different wills. There's the will of God, and there's the personal will. Well, personal will is the executive power of the mind. It's where we make decisions. We decide what we want, how to do it, you know, to take action. And personal will is the center of the personality, and it thereby helps us determines our character formation. Yet personal will is often misunderstood and misconstrued. I mean, heck, even when I was working on this, it's like mastering your will. That implies that there is something to be tamed and put in check. Now, certainly, we require a certain level of socialization so that we're not constantly stealing each other's M&Ms or causing real damage to others. But we do need our will to navigate this world, and being made wrong for using that will is what confuses us and what Cohen calls our predicament. Now, my mother used to tell a story about me. Now, I was the youngest, so she probably told more stories about me because I was the one that was left there, right? And I was about 2, if I understand the story correctly. And I was sitting in my high chair, and I had a bottle, a baby bottle. Now, back in that century, baby bottles were still glass. And apparently, I like to test gravity with my baby bottles. And so one day, as she told the story, I had the bottle, and I was doing whatever with it. And she said, "Now, if you break that bottle, there's no more, because that's the very last one." Whereupon I looked her straight in the eye. I know, those of you who know me wouldn't imagine I could do that. And you know what? She said, "I never asked for another bottle." You know, she told me what was what, and I said, okay. So was I being willful, or was I trying to tell my mother something? Now, she would have gone for willful, obviously. I choose to believe I was showing her who I was, and that she was dealing with a person who was going to follow their inner path, and no threat was going to sway me. And I've often thought if the woman was paying attention that day, she would have started saving for boarding school right then. And it's not that I was a bad kid. I didn't get in a lot of trouble, but we lived in a very small town, and there's rules in a small town. And that rule is you keep your mouth shut because everybody already knows you, and they already know your business anyway. And that I wasn't really very good at that. And so I guess I was willful. And I'll bet you everyone here has that same sort of story, right? I mean, you all have some story of where you were just trying to be yourself, and you were labeled as being willful, when really all you're trying to do is figure out who you are. what you want, I'm here for a reason. What is that? And this doesn't stop just because we're adults. And in fact, I think sometimes it gets harder as we're adults. Well, let's look at the other side for a minute. And I'm going to call this, instead of the will of God, I'm going to call it will of soul. Now, Mr. Cohen said, we sense a will that is behind all things. It's not something that's outside of us. It's a real internal sense of something going on that we feel, but we can't really always identify. Soul will is that underlying impulse that moves you along a path. It's the unformed. It is potential. And that is what manifests through personal will. Every one of us comes into this world with a sense of who we are and what we are about. But it gets pushed down by all the noise of the world with our shoulds, our should nots. But that impulse never leaves us. And when we fight for it, we are called willful. Sure, there's times when we are consciously willful, refusing to do what we know we need to do. We rebel and dig in our heels just because we can. And that's okay too, because we're human, and being human is actually a good thing. But because of all this mixed messaging, even the idea of giving a talk saying mastering your will made me think about the idea that I have to completely give up my personal will, in order to follow my soul will. I have to sacrifice my own wants and needs to follow a spiritual path. But, no matter how spiritual we get, we still have to live in this world and deal with it. We do not live in a vacuum. Well, we actually kind of did for about a year and a half, but we don't anymore. As Cohen says, it's not appropriate that our little will should be destroyed too often because we need it to interact with all the other little wills. Just being able to say that makes me really happy because I get to keep being who I am. The real question, I think, is how do you blend the two wills? How do you know which is which, and how can you make that happen? The good news is that if you are opening to following your inner voice, much of that direction will just come to you. But it's also not super easy either. If it were, probably we wouldn't be sitting here, we'd be out doing. And there are examples, wonderful examples of people who, from our perspective, followed their soul will. And I wanted to look at a couple of them just to see if we could tell if they surrendered their personalities, their personal will. And there's probably people that you have heard of in this list. The first one is a man named Jesus. Now, Jesus is often portrayed as having been meek. And meek actually has a different word, a different meaning than what we see now. But yeah, he was meek, except for that time, he cursed a fig tree because he could. And there was that little incident in the temple grounds where he turned over the tables because he was a little annoyed at the money lenders. And then that other time when he was 12, where the family went to the festival and then everybody else was going home and he hung back behind. I don't know if his parents saw him as willful or not. Certainly the Pharisees saw him as willful. But he was following his path, and he knew exactly what he needed to do, and his personal will is what moved that forward. And he was able to manifest an entirely new way of looking at spirituality, and that is the one that spirituality is available to everyone, and that is a great gift that we got from him following his path. Jesus is an example of how to bring two wills together consciously. And if we started looking at other people like Martin Luther King Jr. and Mother Teresa, we would probably see the same kind of energy. And we know that none of them came to any of this easily. It just doesn't happen. And I sometimes wonder how many times each one of them wanted to quit. I also wonder if they did actually in the end feel like they were giving up something that they wanted to keep. But that's a whole other lesson. We'll talk about that another day. Then there are the people who are just minding their own business, and suddenly something happens and an inner impulse moves them. Now, I understand that Rosa Parks has said she had no intention of starting anything that day on the bus. She was tired. and somebody walked up to her and told her to move, and she was tired, and she just wasn't going to do it. She was done. She stopped playing the game because she was tired. But in that moment, she surrendered to that inner impulse because on a soul will level, she was done, and her personal will is what saw her through. All of these people, at some point, I'm sure, probably still are in some places, labeled willful. And I could stand up here and talk about a lot of famous people who we admire and perceive as following their soul will, and isn't that great, and that they went out to do that. But the real question is, how do you, as an individual, find your way through the predicament of bringing the two wills together? That's our real question. I don't know, maybe the better question is how do you know if you are following your soul will or just your own whim, your own agenda? It's a really good question because the voice of the soul can be really soft sometimes, and personal will can be very, very strong. But it also works the other way. Sometimes the soul will is yelling at you, and the personal will is going, well, I don't know, there's Netflix, there's some chocolate in the refrigerator. So how do we tell the difference? And sometimes it's even harder because they're telling you the same thing. And then you really don't want to listen. Okay, so one way to discover this is to follow the advice of the self-help books and discover your passion. Of course, that only works if you have a passion. Now, I know a lot of people who are dedicated and very focused on something in their lives, but they would never say they felt passionate about it. And there are people who say that they aren't pulled in a specific direction. There isn't any one thing that pulls them, but everything they do, they love. But the word passionate never enters their minds either. That is, until they read a book telling them to go out and find their passion, and then they don't find one, and then they feel like they've failed in some way. And it's not like you can just run down to the Life's Passion store and pick one up. You can't. I tried. Not everyone is meant to have a burning focus. Even some of us who have a narrow, specialized focus might not call it a burning passion. For me, this is what I do. It is what I was made for. It's where I fit. It's about the only place I fit. And I most definitely feel that impulse that pulls me along. So instead of a burning passion, I simply know that I am in my right place. My soul will and my personal will collaborate really well in this environment. Put me in a situation where I have to deal with authoritarian entities, like government agencies where forms have to be filled out and things have to be proven, and my personal will stands up inside my head and says, it just starts screaming, this isn't fair, we shouldn't have to do this, what the heck? I am leaving now. But I still manage to maintain my driver's license because at some point I realized that my personal will isn't doing me any favors in that situation. So I surrender and I do what needs to be done. Sometimes I even do it with grace. Other people are more comfortable and happy in that environment, but when it comes to dealing with spiritual things, they become fearful. They fear that they will have to sacrifice their lifestyle or their beliefs in order to lead a more integrated life. And I will tell you a little secret. You don't have to give up anything to have a more balanced relationship with your two wills. You simply don't. All you need to do is get to know them. Listen to both of them. Listen to both wills. Understand them. Your soul will is the impulse you feel nudging you to do something. It is when you just know that it is a thing that you really, really need to do. You may not be able to explain it to yourself or anyone else, but it stays with you until you take some action. And when this is happening, Your intellect may come in to argue with you and tell you that this just doesn't make sense. But if you start to pay attention, you will learn to tell the difference between a crazy idea from your mind and an even crazier idea from soul will, and that is the one that you will follow. It's always the crazier idea. Your personal will recognizes and chooses that even crazier idea, and it moves forward without knowing exactly why, and it manifests that something in the world. Now, most of you can probably think of a time when you got one of those ideas and just followed it through, putting one step in front of the other without really knowing or thinking about what was going to come next. Think about how you may have tried to talk yourself out of it, but that impulse was so present, so persistent, you just took that next step anyway. Maybe somebody tried to warn you off or say you were being willful for not heeding that warning, but you kept on, and guess what? The results were amazing because you listened to soul will. And yes, we all have the ability to be willful in the sense of being selfish and stubborn. I probably don't go a day with having that pure willful flash showing up. But we also have such a capacity to step back and listen, to pay attention to what is really going on within, and that is where you will find what I have decided to call pure will. That moment where we resolve the two wills and are at peace because we know we are on the right path. Life is messy. In that same interview, Mr. Cohen said, somehow, in some way, we have to be a reflection of the will that is behind the whole mess. Mr. Cohen is right. We live in a loud, distracting world. He called it Boogie Street. And one of the best ways to cope with Boogie Street is to learn to listen to your inner voice, your soul will, and then look to your personal will for the wherewithal to bring that idea, that desire into manifestation. In other words, be a reflection of your soul's deepest desire. We do that by knowing the difference between when we were being willful for will's sake and staying the path for something worthwhile. When you think about it, having two wills is actually a huge gift. It allows us to make choices to determine the way we want to manifest in this life. And when you weave soul will and personal will together and make friends with them, listen to them, play with them, you open to all creation. And that is when you become a reflection of the one true source. And maybe, just for a moment, you are no longer in a predicament. And so it is. So Reverend James will be back next week, and he is going to be talking about mastering your wholeness. We're having a mastering month here. And it is time now for our offering. You have an opportunity to support Spiritual Life Center. You can text SLC Love at 44321, or you can go to slcworld.org and click on the donate button. You, of course, can always mail something to us. And that is especially for people online, but obviously those of you sitting there with your silenced electronic devices can do it as well. And if you want to spread the consciousness to other people, for those of you online, please remember to like, comment, share, or subscribe. And now let us share our offering blessing together. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I circulate. Thank you, God.
Are you ready?
Dang drummers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. creating. It's the moment for our greatness. Let's stand together now. Stand together now. Every day's a chance you can do something amazing. Feel your passion blazing inside. Hey.
With every vision,
Yeah, okay.
new direction,
And explode.
new eyes in your mind.
I will rise up with you today.
Lift up my voice.
Lift up my voice and boldly say, we are the ones we've been waiting for. Live your dream of the highest calling. Be the hope of a new day dawning. We're the ones who can make a difference. Let's stand together. Share your gifts with a world that's waiting for a change that we're all creating. It's a moment for our greatness. Let's stand together now.
Whoa, whoa,
Stand together.
one dream, one heart, one world, one world, one dream,
One dream,
one voice,
one voice.
one heart, one world. Stand together, one dream, one voice, one heart,
One word. Stand together.
the dream of your highest calling. Be the hope of a new day dawning. We're the ones who can make a difference. Let's stand together.
Share your gifts with a world that's waiting for a change that we're all creating. It's the moment for our greatness. Let's stand together. Be the dream of the highest calling. Be the hope of a new day dawning. We're the ones who can make a difference. Let's stand together. Share your gift with a world that's waiting for a change that we're all creating. It's the moment for our greatness. Let's stand together. Everybody, let's stand together. Everybody, let's stand together. Everybody, let's stand together. Let's stand together. Everybody, let's stand together. Everybody, let's stand together. Everybody, let's stand together. Let's stand together. Everybody, let's stand together. Everybody, let's stand together. Everybody, let's stand together. Let's stand together. Everybody, let's stand together. Everybody, let's stand together. Everybody, let's stand together. Let's stand together. Everybody, let's stand together.
And we just know that we bless the offerings and we bless the prayers in the prayer box, knowing that everyone who has put a prayer in there is being watched over, loved. And as these prayers are sent to Silent Unity and prayed over for another 30 days, we know that the highest and best will come forth for every person who has offered a prayer and a prayer request. And so it is. Amen. And now, our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, I am, and all is well.